Well, hello everyone. It's been a long time, uh, and I am excited to be back. Um, I know that our attendance is probably gonna be a little down because of the irregularities of me being gone for several weeks. I do apologize to all of you out there for being gone, but I'm going to make a valiant effort to uh, stay on these weekly as long as I can until these are this series will be complete. Um, so, without any further ado, if you're new here, welcome. You do not have to have gone through all the other episodes. You can jump in at any time. But in order to do that, I do want you guys to go ahead and get the proper branch. Don't try to start from master or from the beginning. Go ahead and get the branch that we're starting on. So if you're going to follow along with this video, you will need to grab episode 7. And then at the end of this video, this is episode 8. So at the end of this video, you can check out episode 8 and compare it with what you currently have. And hi, Khalil. Thanks. Yeah, I'm doing better now. Basically, just a quick update. I got thousands of dollars in medical bills for them to tell me that the medicine they were giving me I'm allergic to, and it was causing issues with my heart. Um, Luckily, I have gotten off of pretty much all, well, I've gotten off all medications, and my heart is doing better. I do have an issue where part of my heart is beating too soon, quite frequently, which causes my heart to skip a beat or flutter or just be a little uncomfortable, but it's not life-threatening. And basically, they say that it's probably anxiety or stress related that's happening. So can't really do anything about that, but I'm no longer on heart medication to keep my heart rate down. Um, so I feel a lot better. Still been pretty anxious and stuff like that, but that's just part of life. I think I'm just going through a midlife crisis or something. I'm getting old and realizing that my time here on Earth is running short. So I want to make the most of it, and part of making the most of what I can do here on Earth is I want to share what I've learned with others, and hopefully it will be an encouragement and also just a not just an encouragement, but hopefully it'll be a blessing to other people, and they can help their lives and their families out as much as possible. And hopefully, you guys, if this helps you, carry on that tradition. Do I smoke? No, I do not smoke. Actually, I've cut out all caffeine. Not taking any medication. Trying to live as pure as I can. Be starting an exercise routine soon. I need to lose about 20 pounds. I'm pretty overweight. Pretty out of shape too from just sitting at a desk all day. And I think that's what part of the problem has been, is that I've been sitting all day at work, and then I come home and I sit at a computer, and then I come to these live streams and I sit more, and I just do a lot of sitting around. It's not great for your body. All right. So Abbas, thank you, thank you. Missed you guys as well. I have missed this series, and I know I'm going to be a little rusty coming back in. But what I want to do is show you guys. Let me jump over to my screen real quick, and let's go ahead and look. If you go to bitbucket.org/Parham Curtis, you can see my repositories. This live e-commerce YouTube course is what you want. So you'll click on that, and then click on source, and in here you can see the list of branches. So go ahead and grab episode 7 is where we left off last time. This is episode 8. Episode 8 will be where we end up at the end of tonight. So if you're just starting and you want to, this is episode 8 and you want to follow along, grab episode 7 and we'll start from there. And then if you want to check your work, go ahead and start, grab episode 8 at the end of this if you have issues, and you will be exactly caught up with me. Keep in mind that you will have to update your config files and things like that. Pretty much just your config file to put in your database information, and I can show you that as well. Okay, so with that, I know it's been a long time, but where we left off in the last video is we had the ability to add images and to reorder them and delete them. So editing these, there is a bug right now with this not working any longer. This feature, you can't unfeature these products. And so I think the first thing we're going to do, that's going to be a really simple fix. The first thing we're going to do is fix that, and then we're going to jump into adding brands so that we can have brands for each of our products, and then later we can search by brand and things like that. So that we'll have to get into some joining today. We're also going to have to get into just adding a little more basic crud operations for brands and things like that. So shouldn't be too bad. Won't be horrible, but I think we'll do that first. Second after we fix the bug, and then time permitting, I'd like to move on to building out our featured products page, where the home page is going to be what featured products show. So I'd like to start out by doing that, and then if we even have time after that, I'd like to get to the details page for each product to display the products and to add it to the cart. And then hopefully in the next video, at some point, we're going to start the shopping cart part of this, and then start the payment gateways very shortly after that. And then we can get more into adding new features and other things like that. But I want to just do the basic stuff first so that people can get the most out of the series as early on as possible. And if they don't want to finish the minutia of going through every little feature or something towards the end, that's totally fine too. All right, guys. Hi, Sean. Thank you for coming to the live stream. Welcome. All right. So now that we've kind of gone through what branch you should be working on off of, and kind of what today's roadmap is, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to do is I made an update to the framework because there was a slight bug in the input class, the get. If there wasn't anything there, that was actually creating an error. And so let's go ahead and jump in and show you how to merge in that real quick. So if you jump over to a terminal, you can see I am on episode 8, and if you go ahead and do git remote -v for verbose, it will show you. Just need to make sure you have upstream set up. If you've been following along up to this point, you will have this, which makes it very easy to go ahead and merge in the new changes. And so in order to do that, all you have to do is do a git and then go ahead and fetch upstream like that, and that will get any changes on the upstream branch, which is going to be the framework. The next thing you want to do is go ahead and merge in those changes, and to do that you just do git merge, and then you'll do upstream /master. All right, I've already done this, so I'm not going to run that. It wouldn't make a difference, but you do that, and then you may have some merge conflicts, probably with the config file. So you go ahead and fix the merge conflicts, and then and you'll be good to go. All right, so that's that. So now the next thing I want to do is let's go ahead and fix this issue with this. So if I click on this, you can see that it fires off an AJAX request to the admin products controller, and then it goes to the toggle featured action. Okay. And then it's sending an ID of the product ID along with that in the form of form data. If you look at the response, we got a PDO exception here, and that is because incorrect integer value for column featured at row 1. And so in order to fix that, let's go ahead and look at the code there. So if we go into app, controllers, admin products, we can look, there is an action called toggled featured action right here. And this is the issue. And I'm not sure why this worked before. probably just a different version of PHP or something like that, and it was just a little more loose. So it may work for you, but if not, we're going to go ahead and make this a little more explicit. So right now, if you look in the database, what's happening is our featured is a Boolean of 1 or 0, okay? And we're treating it, it's actually not a Boolean, it's a tiny int of 0 and 1. And we're in our code, we're treating that as a Boolean, which shouldn't matter, but zeros and nulls and things like that act funny sometimes with PHP, also depending on what version of PHP you're in. So what we need to do is just, instead of toggling it like this, which was kind of a smart way to do it, but just doesn't work with PHP, let's just go ahead and throw in a ternary operator here, and we're just going to say if product featured, and if that's equal to 1, then we're going to set this thing equal to 0, and if not, we're going to set it equal to 1, and then we could just go ahead and get rid of that right there. Alright, so we're setting the product featured, and it's going to be equal to 1, or if it's equal to 1, we're going to set it to 0, else we're going to set it equal to 1. So that should correct the issue, I think. I haven't actually tried it yet, but that's what I am assuming. But yeah, there we go. So now, if you look at that, our response is correct. We get our model ID back along with our message that we're displaying to the user. So this is toggling correctly now. So if I turn all of them off and we refresh the database, you can see that we have no featured products here. Go back, we can go ahead and feature those and refresh the database, and now we have those 3 products are featured. All right, so just a real quick, I know that, you know, we kind of just brushed over that in the last video, like, oh, that's broken, and we moved on. And I just didn't want to get bogged down into trying to figure that out. So I wanted to jump on that at the beginning of this video to make sure we didn't skip it again, because I knew it was going to be a small issue. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it, so you guys are sitting around wondering what the heck is going on with that. So let's get started with brands. In order to do brands, we need a new table, and we also need to add a column to our products table here, and we'll call it brand ID, and then we're going to create a brand table that will keep all of our brands listed in. And to do that, we're going to do a database migration, and so in order to do that, what we're going to do is jump over to terminal, and I'm going to make sure I'm in my project root right here, and if you ls, you can see that we will have a generate migration script right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run that. I'm going to just do php gen migration, and once we do that and we jump back over to our source code, you will notice there is a new migration file generated here. Now, hey Artur, nice to see you too, man. Yeah, I love you guys. You guys have been so supportive. I thought you guys would be mad at me and unsubscribing, and maybe a few people did, but overall, you guys have been very, very, very supportive, and I can't tell you how much that means to me. That I can step away for a few weeks and have all of you guys' love and support and prayers and thoughts and things like that. So I do appreciate that, guys. Thank you very much. So we've created this new migration now. And once we create this migration, we're going to run it. And there's going to be a problem if you're using examp, and I'm going to show you a workaround for that. But if not, you can just run it. You can SSH into your environment and run it from there, but I'm going to show you both ways. Alright, so in order to do this, we wanted to add a brands table, and we want to modify our products table. So let's do the modification on the products table first. So what I'm going to do is create a variable and just call it table, and that will be for products. And then what I want to do is do this, add column. And on the add column, the first parameter it gets is the table. The next parameter it's going to get is the column that we want to add, and in this case it's going to be brand ID. So we'll just do brand underscore ID. The next parameter that this takes is what type of column is it? What data structure is it? And in our case, it's going to be an integer. So go ahead and do int there. We don't need a fourth parameter on this unless we want to tell it where to place this. And I think I'll do that. So let me, just to refresh my memory, I'm going to open up that migration right here. And the attributes, let's see. I think it's just after. Yeah, it is. So the fourth parameter here could just be an array of attributes, and I get to pick where, after what column we want to add this. And so let's look at the database here. I think a good place would be, let's look at the structure. The brand would probably fit in nice either after the name, I think. Yeah, I think I'm going to put it either before or after name. So I'll put it after name. And you guys don't have to do this. It would just, if you don't do this fourth attribute here, it's going to just add it to the end of the table, which isn't a big deal. All right, so we're going to do that. And then the other thing I want to do is we're going to want to search by this brand ID so that we can filter. And for that query to be fast, we want to go ahead and add an index on that integer. So an integer is totally fine to add an index. So what we're going to do is we'll do this, add index, and the index, it just takes two parameters. It's just going to be table for the first one, and then the name of the column that you're adding the index to. So it's going to add index name brand ID to the column brand ID there. All right, so now that we have that, that's pretty much all we need to do probably to the products table. I'm debating whether or not I could add this all in one migration script, but because I want to show you guys that you may have an issue if you're on XAMPP, I think I'm going to break these up into two separate migrations, our brands table and this table. So I'm going to go ahead and run this migration. So the preferred way to do this is to actually just run it the same way that we did here, but we can't just do it from our local machine because the way the database is set up, it doesn't know what localhost is basically from that perspective. So we have to SSH into the machine. And so I'm using Vagrant, which I know most of you aren't, but if you are using Vagrant or you're just on a live server, you can just SSH into that. The command for that is just Vagrant SSH. And now you can see that I have got a secure shell here into my server. So this is my server running Nginx, and I am inside of that now. And so if I just cd into the root directory and hit ls, what I want to do is find where the source code is. And I happen to know that it is in, if we go to var, and then we go to www, and then HTML. So this, on the server that this Vagrant server, this is actually where you can see my source code is right here. So from here, I just need to type php run migrations, and it will run that. So the only migrations I had to run were that one file. So it added the column brand ID and added the index. You can see that output there. So now if we go back to the table and we refresh, we'll now see after the name that we have an integer of brand ID here. Okay? All right, so Jordan asked a good question. He said, do you prefer Vagrant over Docker? That's an excellent question. I've been working with both. I prefer Docker. However, if you're on Mac or Linux, if you're on Mac or Windows, I would just say go with Docker and install Docker Desktop and things like that. And Windows and Mac have some pretty awesome things that they do with file permissions to make everything kind of work in that way. On Linux, however, I ran into a lot of issues with file permissions, and I just got frustrated. So on my Linux machine here, I'm running Vagrant, and that way I'm setting up my file permissions as shared NFS directories. And I would do the same thing on Docker, but I just, and I saw a lot of forums. Maybe you guys are smarter than me. I've read a lot and tried out a lot of different things to fix the Linux permissions, and I can't seem to get it to work seamlessly yet. And so I'm just kind of reverting back to Vagrant. Now, what I've seen a lot of people do, and actually what we do at work for our dev machines, because we're using Kubernetes on Google at work. However, on our dev machines, we use Docker and Vagrant. So we use Vagrant to spin up a CoreOS Linux distribution, and then inside of that, we have a script that runs Docker Compose up, and so we can take that same Docker file gets used on our Kubernetes deployments, but we're still able to run on Linux, Mac, and Windows with Vagrant on our dev machines, if that makes any sense. So it's not that I prefer one or the other. Docker can be less resource intensive because you're not running an extra operating system in a virtual machine, because that's what Vagrant does. It uses like VirtualBox or something like that to run a virtual machine, so it does use up system resources to do so. And Docker's going to use system resources too, and plus it has to have some sort of hypervisor, which is the same as running a virtual machine, except for Docker uses a very stripped down, very small deal. So anyways, sorry for the tangent, but I thought that was a good question. So it's not that I prefer it, but it was easier to set up on Linux basically, and I'm using a Linux box for the live series. If you guys are interested, I can actually, I was actually going to make a few videos on how to set up an environment with Vagrant and Docker. So I can do that at some point. Probably not, it's not going to be part of this series though, or I probably won't do it live either, because that stuff is so like labor intensive, and there's so many little bugs and nuances to get worked out. But at any rate, so we've added that. So that's the way that the system is intended to run migrations. Let me show you now what's going to happen. We're going to write one more migration, and then I'm going to show you what you're going to have to do if you don't have the ability to SSH into your server. So say it's on, like, for some reason you're on some weird shared hosting thing and you can't SSH into it, or you're on XAMPP on your local machine, they have some weird SSH problems with that as well. And so I'm going to show you how to do that with XAMPP. It's real easy, but I'll show you that. So let's go ahead and create one more. Creating these migrations you can do regardless. It's not a problem because you don't have to SSH in. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of my server here, and I'm back here into, actually I'm going to go back to my public folder here. So I'm just going to go ahead and run that gen migration script again, and that will create a new migration. So now with this new database migration, we're going to create a new table. Okay, and I think what we'll do is we'll call this table brands, and do create table. And then we'll just start adding our columns. But the first thing I want to do though, let's go ahead and, I don't know if we need timestamps on this. I guess we could do timestamps, not a big deal. So we'll add timestamps. And then after that, we'll just start doing add column. And we're not going to need much here. I think what we'll do for the first one is we'll call this name. And this column is just going to be a varchar. And we'll give that a size of, we don't really need 255 characters, probably for a brand name. That would be a super long brand name. So let's just limit that. I'm going to put that at 125. Not any for real specific reason, but just keep that in mind. If you wanted to go 255, you could, but I'm just going to do 125. I can't imagine a brand name being over that, or even over 60, but I gave it some buffer. So we have our timestamps, our name. Really, we don't really need anything else at the moment. What we should probably do though is soft delete this. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Add soft delete. All right, and then what we want to do is add indexes. You know what? We actually don't need an index on this because add soft delete is going to add an index for the soft delete. And then we're probably just going to be joining by ID. I don't think we'll be searching by name. You know what? We will add it because if we had a search bar later, we might actually want people to be able to type brand names and then pull up products based upon that. So we'll add an index for that, I guess. All right. So here's the issue. If you try to run this, first of all, you could try to navigate directly to that file from your browser, which is how you're going to have to work around this if you're using XAMPP. So all you have to do here is, you would use localhost / whatever your project path is. And then what you want to do is just navigate to run migrations.php, and you'll notice that there's an error that pops up and says restricted. Let me make sure that I'm doing that correct. Run migrations. Yeah, so what's happening here, if you go to that file, I have this if statement on line 2, and basically this if statement is just checking if you're running this from a command line interface. If you're not running it from command line interface, it just kills the script so that people can't navigate to this in a browser. And so in order to get around this, just to run this one time, just go ahead and comment out that line on line 2 and then refresh here. And the output won't look as nice as it does on a terminal because it's going to have, the terminal output here. But basically, if you look through it, you can see that it succeeded. Okay, so that's what you're going to have to do if you can't SSH into your server. You just basically go to the run migrations script and comment out line 2, and then just visit it on a browser one time, and then make sure you uncomment that so that no one else can find their way to that in your browser and try to run database migrations. They can't really do anything with it anyway because it's just, if you were waiting to run your migrations for some reason, you don't want a bunch of migrations running on your live server if you hadn't intended that to happen. Especially if it's a real intense migration that might bring down your database with a lot of load or traffic. You just don't want that to happen. And that's the reason I have that line of code there, just to make sure people are running it from CLI or command line interface. All right, so the next thing you can do is let's just check our database here. I'm going to refresh. Now we have a new table called brands. And so it just has an ID created at, updated at. This was added because of our add timestamps function we used. And then our one bar chart and column, and then our deleted tiny int, which is just so we can soft delete these if we want. All right, so and this part's a little bit boring because we got to do a bunch of CRUD operations to add these brands, but this is important because we need to be able to segment our products. And one of the most logical ways to segment your products is by brand. And so this will help us with filtering and searching later. So that's why we're going to go ahead and do it. And we're going to also give ourselves the ability in our products to, when we're editing, you can edit the brand. So we'll need to add a field here, and then also we'll want to, when you're creating a new product, we need to add it to that form as well. So it's not a big deal. It's gonna be super easy to add that. But now that we've added a new table, we need a new model. So let's go ahead and jump over to our models here. I'm gonna go ahead and close these migrations down. Just close everything down there. And I'm gonna jump into our models and I'm gonna create a new file. And this was called brands.php. I'm gonna pull up another model for reference. Just so I can set this up without using a bunch of. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go ahead and give this thing its namespace so that it can be auto-loaded. And the namespace for this is just app models. All right, the next thing that we want to do is use core model. All right, and then go ahead and declare a class. And we're going to call this brands, and it's going to extend model. All right, once we've done that, we need to add, we basically need to add a public property for each column in the database. So we'll just go ahead and list those out here. So public ID, created at, updated at, we had name, and then we had deleted. Now deleted, we want to set a default value of 0 there, so that we don't have to set that every time we save a new brand. It'll just be set by default to 0. We could do that in a database structure. However, defaults on fields don't always work. MySQL and MariaDB and stuff like that, or MariaDB, however you want to say it, depending on your version and stuff like that, they don't really play nice with defaults sometimes. Hi JJ, nice to see you, brother. And so yeah, we'll just go ahead and we declare those like that, and then we need to go ahead and tell it what the table is. And in this case, the table is just brands, like that. And then we give it one more protected property, and this is static as well, because we wanted to use soft delete, and that is equal to true. The next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that the public, we go ahead and before save, we want to go ahead and run our timestamps so that this will update the updated at or generate them. And that's a really easy function. It's just called this timestamps. So that'll run every time before save to update timestamps on this. We didn't really have to do timestamps on brands. I just thought one reason we might do it is because we had mentioned this might be a multi-vendor. Yeah, JJ, sorry you didn't receive a notification for the stream, man. YouTube is just, they have some weird algorithm where they just sometimes decide not to show notifications to everyone. I guess so they don't burn people out. So you won't always get all notifications for everything. It's stupid. I don't know why they do it that way, but that's what they've chosen to do, and they're smarter than myself, so I just have to kind of deal with it. But hopefully, to alleviate that, we're just going to do them every Tuesday, unless something else happens with my health, which I don't think it will. I think I'm on the right, go in the right direction here, but God only knows. All right, so basically the only other thing I would say is we want to go ahead and make sure the name is required and that it's unique. We don't want people to have multiple brands of the same. And so let's go ahead and do some validation as well. So what we can do is we only need one validator here. So we don't need to do a group or whatever. So we can just run required. Oh, you know what? We do need unique, so we could do a group. So let's do, so if you're using, this only works if you're using PHP 7, by the way. So we're going to do required validator and unique. What did I call that? Not showing up. Let's see. I think it's called unique. It is unique validator. All right. Now, if you don't have PHP 7 running, you just don't do this syntax with the grouping. You just require them separately, or use them separate. So it would just be use core validators, and then required validator, and then you would do another line for unique validator. So that's all you would have to do. The thing is PHP is actually going to stop supporting 5.6. So you do want to get updated to at least PHP 7. I'm currently running 7.3, I believe. So if you're on a server that's got 5.6, you need to start looking at upgrading or updating that, because PHP is no longer going to maintain 5.6. So you should be good to go with this code if you're decently up to date. All right, so now that we have those two validators pulled in, we're going to go ahead and add in our public function validator. And what this is used is every time we save anything with this brand model, it's going to run this validator to make sure everything is on the up and up. And the way that we do that is we just need to, for each field, we just do this run validation. Okay, so that's the method that gets run on the model. But we pass in the validator, and we go ahead and instantiate that all in line here. So you just say new required validator, and the validator gets the model passed in as the first parameter, so you just pass in this, and then it gets an array. And in this case, it just needs two things. It needs to know what field you're validating, and then it needs to know what message to return if there's an error. So that's just going to be a string, and in this case, we're just going to say brand name is required. All right. The next thing that we want to do is we want to run this again. So let's see. But instead of required validator, we're going to run unique. And the unique validator, it can be the same thing, except for the field. In this case, we're going to go ahead and make that an array instead of just a regular field. And we want to make sure that we're setting that with deleted. So the first one, we want to make sure the name is unique, and with deleted. So actually, you know what? I might have actually done that inside the unique thing. Let me check that real quick. I didn't. So yeah, you just need to add deleted there as the second field. And then for the message, we'll just tell it that brand name already exists. All right. Let's see. All right, so that's the two validators that I think we'll need. We're just going to validate name. All right, JJ said if I have a couple minutes, he needs to ask me about an issue. You can always ask the question, whether or not I'll answer it live. I'll just kind of have to see how relevant it is to everyone else and this project. But you can absolutely ask any questions you guys want. I always try to answer as many questions as I can, because I think that's the power of a live video over just a pre-recorded video. So just ask the questions if you guys have them, and I'll do my best to answer them. Now, now that we have that, we need a way to return all of these brands. And I think what I want to do is let's see. We could add a method to this model if we want to return each brand and ID so that we can use it on the front end. But we don't really need to because the models already have a find method, and I don't really see a reason to not use that. So what we'll do is let's go ahead and first add this to our forms. Well, crap. We can't really do that yet. We're kind of like a chicken and the egg situation here, where we need to go ahead and add some of these brands. So I guess what we'll do is we'll start adding the ability in our admin area to create brands and to edit them and see them. So just CRUD operations. So what we'll need here is, instead of this, we need another menu item, and we'll just call that brands. So let's go ahead now and go to the app and go to admin menu ACL. And what we want to do here is create a new menu item, and we'll call it brands. And here, I guess we'll just kind of follow this same logic that we've been doing. So we'll just say view brands. You know what? Actually, I don't like that. We don't need to do that for brands. It's too simple. So for brands, what we'll do, instead of it being a drop down, is we're just going to say admin brands, and we'll go to index. There we go. So I think that's good. Now we don't have access to see this yet, so if we refresh the page, it doesn't show up in the menu. So we need to go ahead and add that. So in order to do that, we're going to go to the acl.json file, and we want to go ahead and give access to that. So we'll say admin brands, and we'll give access to all actions on that, and refresh, and now you can see brands show up here in the menu. And so if we go there, though, it's going to be an error because we don't have a controller set up. So it actually goes to admin brands, but there's no controller. So we need to go ahead and remedy that, and the way that we do that is just go to controllers, and we'll add admin brands controller .php. All right, just give it a namespace. And so here, first thing we always have to do on these is give it the namespace. That has to be the first thing. You can't do anything else before declaring a namespace. So this namespace is app controllers, and then we need to use core controller, and I got an extra little R there. So JJ's question is, he said he has a problem execute external libraries in Composer in the vendor folder. That's likely because there's two reasons for that. It's the autoloader is not being loaded in, and we're going to use Composer later when we get to adding the SDKs for like our payment gateways. So we'll probably use it, so I'll show you how to fix that then. But to kind of get you on the right path, I can just kind of explain what's going on. Basically, if you're using Composer or whatever, if you go to our index.php, we have the autoload function here that we're running, you'll need to add the other, you'll need to require in the other autoloader for Composer here. The other thing that you'll have to do is you will actually have to go to, if you're using Apache, this rewrite condition on line 7 here, make sure that you have this vendor directory added here so that it doesn't try to redirect to index.php. So that's the two issues that I can think of that's probably standing in your way, is the auto loading of the classes and the AJAX trying to redirect to index.php. So you just need to make sure you add vendor here so that you can get to it. But if you've been following along, we've already added vendor to the AJAX. So it's probably has to do with the autoloader. So we'll get to that in this series because we're going to use Composer. So I can show you exactly how to set that autoloader up then. I'm not going to go into it tonight because it'd be too much of a break from what we're currently working on, and I think we would go down a path. And it doesn't really make sense to do it now because we don't need it yet. So I don't want to do any sort of complicated code that we don't have anything to test it on, because I'd probably end up with a bug anyway. So yeah, that's probably what it is. You need to go to the index.php file and require in that autoloader that comes with Composer in order for that to work. So I hope that helps. All right, so back on the admin brands controller, we are going to continue with this, and we'll just do our class declaration here. So we'll just say class admin brands controller, and that will extend controller. All right. Now the only thing that we have to do is now this will actually get us further than we were. This probably won't be a 500 error any longer. But now it says, hey, the method does not exist in the admin brands. And the method that it's looking for is the index action. And so we need to add that. So all we have to do right on, Steve, man, good luck with your test. And we'll catch you whenever you can, man. But good luck with that, and thanks for popping on. All right, so we need to do our index action here. I get so distracted by your guys' comments, but I love it. Don't stop commenting. That's what makes these live streams fun for me, is talking to you guys, and it's really neat to me to be able to. I'm kind of old, so it's amazing to me that I get to talk to people all over the world. So we got the index action here, and the only thing that we need to do right out of the gate is we need to give it a view. So in order to do that, we'll say this render, I think it's render view, or this view render. And so we don't have a view for that yet. So let's jump up back into our app, look in views, and we need a directory. Oops. We need a new directory called admin brands. And inside of there, we need a new file called index.php. And then what we want to do is render admin brands index. All right, so let's see what happens there. Hey, see you later, Khalil. All right, guys, so now what we have here is our brands. Let's go ahead, and all we need to do right up front is just tell it to this start body. We'll go down a few lines and we'll say this end, and that will actually inject whatever we put here into our layout. Let's refresh now. So now you can see we have our menu structure here. Let's go back to admin, and one thing we are not doing is, if you notice when we go to that page, it is using the wrong menu, and that is because we have to tell it what layout to use. So let's go ahead and pull up another one like the products for. Okay, so what we've done in the past is use the onConstruct hook, and we have which I'm going to grab that whole thing because that's actually useful, and I'm going to copy that to our admin brands controller. Just go ahead and paste that in there. Now what should happen is the correct menu should yeah, we got to go ahead and do this to use app models users, because we're using this right here. We need to go ahead and add that in so the autoloader can find it. Alright, so here we go. Now we're good to go. So now we can jump back and forth between products and brands, and our layout is correct. And I know this is kind of a dry subject tonight, guys, to do another CRUD operation. It's just the nature of building an application is you have to do all the work. And so we can do some things to make it a little easier for us, like, you know, copying and pasting and things like that. So now let's go ahead and look at our products table, because we can probably swipe a lot of code from there so that we don't have to type it all back out again. So go to views, products, and we'll look at our index here. It's just a table. We don't need all this JavaScript here. We'll add some of that, but let's just grab this table. And jump back over to our index here and paste that in. Probably just go ahead and add an H. Let's see, what do we do on? We didn't have any sort of header here. Probably should add some headers to these things. So I'm going to add an H2 here, and we'll just say brands at the top of the page. All right. Let's see. Now, we don't have any brands yet, and right now this for each loop is looking for this products. I think what we'll do, because we don't have much to show on this table, we'll just do ID brand name, and that's probably all we need. We'll leave another column for some actions like deleting and editing buttons and things like that. So let's see. Let's go ahead and go back to our controller, and we need to find all brands that currently exist. So right here in the index action, well, first let's go ahead and pull in that model. So we'll say use app models, and then we'll use our new brands model like that. And then in our index action, we want to find all those brands. So we'll just say this view brands is equal to brands find. Right now, the only thing that I can think that we want to do is we want to go ahead and do order, and let's order these by name. All right. So currently, it actually won't have anything in there still because we haven't created any brands. But we need to update this table. So we'll say this brands as brand. Go ahead and give it brand ID for our row so that we can later, when we do the delete, probably do that with an AJAX call, we can delete that. The next thing we want to do is go ahead and go here and do a brand name, and that was it. We'll leave these off, and then we'll leave some of these buttons we can just leave, but I'm gonna leave 2 of them. We'll update that later. So let's see what's happening here now. All right, so now we have this huge table. It's rather large. You know, we could probably do something where instead of taking it to a separate form, since this is such a easy crud thing, we can probably just do this all with one screen. And I think that's what I want to do is go ahead and have a form maybe off to the right or something. Might be a little cluttered, but I don't know. I don't really think we need all of this. We could just put all this in a div. I don't know. Let's do that. Let's put this in a div, and we'll give it a class call medium 6, call medium offset 2. All right. Yeah, we could put it in a card too, I guess. They changed a little bit of how they do these offsets. So let's see. Let's go to I'm not too familiar with Bootstrap 4. I don't use it that often, but I know I'm really close on that. Oh yeah, let's do justify content center if we want. We have to create 2 of those. I think they have an offset still. Let's see. Oh yeah, they just did. It's not call offset anymore, it's just offset. That's pretty cool, I guess. Cleans it up a little bit. Yeah, so we can just get rid of this. Just do offset medium 2. Do my math all stupid there. 6. Yeah, so that actually needs to be 3. I want it centered. Oh well, good enough. Yeah. Again, this is for the admin area. We don't have to make it look great, but do a card, and I think we can do a background of like a light gray or something like that too. We can do that too. That's fine. We'll do a card. BG. What was it? Light, maybe. Oh, I think it's actually secondary. It wasn't secondary. Let's see. I don't know if we can do call medium 6 and then offset medium 3 as well. I don't want to get hung up on spending too much time on this. Now it's just finding that background color I want. Let's see. I like this one. So it's which one is that? I think it was light, just like I remember. BG light, yeah, that's the one I want. So not secondary, let's try light. Ugh, still looks kind of crappy, but let's see. We can do one more thing, kind of clean this up a little bit. Let's grab the header and body, so it's card header. Damn it. And let's go ahead and put brands here. And then we'll go ahead and wrap the rest of this in a div. For body. Alright. It's gonna have to be getting close to okay because I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this. It's alright, whatever. The reason it has that weird margin around it is because of this. We're using columns and stuff. We'll clean that up later, not a big deal. I'm gonna get rid of this real quick. And let's go ahead and just add some stuff in here. Alright, so let's see. We need a form to add a new brand. But we don't necessarily need to do it. I think we can use an AJAX call to add these brands. I don't really necessarily think we need to do anything else. So let's go ahead and grab a modal. Let's go to modals here. And I think what we'll do, we'll add a button to, let's see, grab all this. This will speed things up a little bit. I'm going to add this down here at the bottom. Obviously, the button will move. And for the button, let's go ahead and call this add new brand. I'm okay with all of this, so we'll do add brand here. What we'll probably end up doing is stripping all this out and putting it in a partial so that we can use it for editing as well. But for now, we'll just leave it like this. All right. Instead of close, we'll say cancel. And all right, so let's take a look at that. I'm going to add this button up here. Let's add it should be able to add it inside this header. I think what I want to do here, what the heck, here what we'll do is we'll do and I want to do margin left to, we'll add that here, and we want this to be we need to make this flex now. So in order to do that, go back to layout, grid, let's make this a row. All right, and then after this button, we'll make this a column as well, and that should make this a flex box. It does. The only other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that this grows so that this is pushed all the way over to the right, and then we'll do some alignment. So let's go ahead and put an H2 around this. And I think they have a flex grow thing here, so justify content, nope. Line item center. So here, align items center. Let's see, that should help. There we go. And then we just need to make this grow now. So I believe that to make it grow, we are at flex grow. Well, I can just, I don't know, I don't know what that class is right now, so I'm just gonna hard code it. Right here, I know that this is using flexbox, so I can just do flex grow 1 like that. Come on now. Oh, I see. They're both equally growing. So actually, I'm gonna take this. I'm gonna put that on this div, and I'm gonna do flex grow 0. I don't know, screw it. We'll do it this way. I don't have time to mess with this styling crap. So text, right. Alright, so now let's see if that works. Alright, opens up the modal. Inside this modal, we actually want to have the form. And when we click Save Changes, we want that to fire an AJAX request to our controller action to add the brand to the table. And then if it's good, we want to be able to close this and stuff like that. So what we'll do here is we'll just let's go down. And this is getting a little bit big for this one file. So I am going to go ahead and split this off into a partial. And in order to do that, we just need to go to admin brands, and inside of there we're going to add a new file, or actually we're going to add a new directory called partials, and inside there we're going to add a new file. We'll call this form.php, and we'll end up using this for editing and for we'll use it for editing, and we'll use it for adding probably. So inside that form, we're just going to go ahead and grab this entire modal out of here and put that inside the form.php, just to kind of clean that up some. That way we can add our form elements in here. And here, I think the method is just this. Partial. And then admin brands. And I think it was form. I believe that's how we do that. Might have to look that up. Let's see if that still works. And it does. So we're good to go with moving that to a partial. Alright, so now that we've done that, we need to go ahead and grab when we open the modal, we need to have the product, okay? I don't know how else to put it. We need to have a product inside or available for our view. So we need to go ahead and create a new brand. In order to do that, we're just going to say this view brand is equal to new brands. That will instantiate a new object, and we can use that with our form to go ahead and add that. So let's see. I'm actually going to split this out. You'll see why in a moment. Put this at top. And then skip down a few lines, and here we're just going to say this brand is equal to brand. Let me check the documentation for this modal. There may be something in our API that we can use to fire something off real quick. Yeah, so we can use this show or shown, probably use show instance. That way we can listen for this event to happen and fire off something. I don't know. I don't know if this is the best way to do it, but we can keep going because it is just what it is. All right, so we have the brand set up here. We need one more thing. We need this view display, or we'll just call it form errors, equal to brand get error messages. There we go. Now we can finish out the form. So what we want to do here is in this modal body, let's go ahead and add a form for the method. This is just going to be post, but it won't matter because I don't think we're actually going to post this. We're going to use AJAX anyhow, so it doesn't really matter. We don't even have to put it in a form if we don't want. Alright. So then what we want to do is we're going to do some form helpers. So I'm going to go ahead and at the top of this deal here, I'm going to say use core form helpers. All right, and then here we're going to echo out form helpers, and we need just an input field, input block. So let's see. So type, label, name, value. Type is just going to be text. Label is going to be brand name. Let's see. This is going to be name. And then value is going to be this brand name. Okay, and then we need the input attributes and the div attributes. So input attributes, we're just going to do a class of form control. and then we're going to do, for the surrounding div, we're going to do a class of form group. And then for our display errors, it was this form errors. Okay. Let's see where we're at there. Core view brand. We'll look at this partial. Whoops. Alright, let's try another thing here. Let's see why that's not doing that. Up here, what I want to do is I'm just going to also use core helpers, and then we're going to do a dump and die here. And we're going to die and show this. All right, let's see. Oops. Yep, I have an error here where I did not say this. I didn't pass that brand into the view. I just said this brand. So that was my bad. So now should go here, get rid of that. This should work now, at least somewhat. All right, so we have our brand name. So we should be able to just type in a brand name here. And then what we want to do, you guys will notice really quickly that I just make a lot of silly typos. And one, that's just how I operate in general. I just do that all the time. But it's exacerbated on a live stream because I have so many things on my mind that I'm not just thinking about programming, I'm thinking about comments, I'm thinking about the stream, I'm thinking about what's next, I'm thinking about a million things that's going on. And so I always make a lot of silly mistakes, so thank you guys for catching those and dealing with it. So the next thing we want to do is when we click save or cancel, we're going to want to go ahead and do something. Probably empty this out. We'll use jQuery, I guess, just to empty this if they hit cancel. If they hit save, we want to go ahead and make an AJAX call to the controller action, and then depending upon how that what that returns, we will display the form errors or not. Okay. So let's just get busy with it. Let's see. It's not going to work great with this AJAX call because of our form errors and everything being on the same thing. But I've already started it, so let's just see what we can do with it. Because ultimately I don't want to build a separate page and things like that, which kind of isn't a big deal, but I just think it's weird to go to a whole form when we have this. But anyway, so what we're going to do now is we will go ahead and let's first do the cancel action because that's easiest. So we need down here at the bottom, let's add some script tags. And this is just going to be cancel. We'll call it a cancel function or whatever. So we need a function cancel add, something like that, or cancel and clear form. We'll just, I don't know if cancel is a reserved word in JavaScript or not, but we'll see. So here what we want to do is we will want to target the modal, and this modal, let's see, we called it example modal here, so let's change this to instead of example modal, let's change this ID to just want to make sure I don't break the modal. So we'll change this to add brand form, and then here do the same thing for the screen readers. Add brand form. All right, and then add brand form. We'll need to go back to this index and fix our button though, like that. All right, and then what we'll want to do here is say jQuery and add brand form, and then let's look at that. That was hide. The other thing that we'll want to do is we're going to go ahead and look for our name input, and so we'll just look for input name, and here we'll do .val, and we're just going to empty that out. So let's test that and see if it works. I'm going to open up the console to see if I have any errors. I'll put some values in there, hit cancel. It didn't clear it, so I don't use jQuery much. I usually use React, so I need to look at the jQuery value. I thought it was just .val. So that returns, but I thought you could pass in an empty string to clear it out. You can. So that must mean this is wrong. Okay, well, it works in the console. Maybe move it above here. I can't imagine that the DOM element doesn't exist after it closes. Maybe I'm wrong though. Weird. I should be able to just, like, if I copy this exact, look, if I copy this exact thing and in the console you paste it, it clears it, so it works. There just must be something with the timing here, with the modal closing or something, that it's not working. So, you know what we'll do? Let's try this. We also want this to happen if they click like this X button, and we want it to happen if they click the background. So we need to use the hook that they give us as well. So let's go ahead and add another thing here, and we'll just try this. So we're gonna add jQuery, and this, we're gonna bind this add brand form dot, I think it was on, and the hook was hidden, was it bs, hidden.bs.modal. So there we're going to fire our cancel function. Alright, I just want to get it working like this first. I want to know why. Mainly because jQuery is stupid is what I'm guessing. So it works there. Okay, so I think it's just an order of operations thing, because that's working. So what we want to do is probably here, oh, they already had the data dismiss. That's why. Oh my gosh. Probably if I would have removed this data dismiss thing, it would have worked. Also, we could have added an on click, but I think the real issue is that data dismiss right here. That actually should just work now as well. So let's try it. Yeah. All right. So we're good to go there. So we don't really need to create this function here. We could just use an anonymous function. This isn't doing anything other than one line of code here now. We don't need it outside of that. So we'll just make an anonymous function. Let's test that again. All right. So we're good to go. The next thing we want to do is we want to fire off a function on the save changes, and that's going to be an AJAX call. So there we'll go ahead and we'll add the on click method, and we are going to fire off this save brand function. So down here we'll do function save brand and we're going to want to this is going to be an AJAX call. So jQuery.ajax, and that takes an object as a parameter. And let me scroll up a little bit. And so this will get a URL. So we're going to go ahead and send this, I think, to this needs to go to our project root. So I'm going to go ahead and do proot here. And then we're going to send that to admin brands, and then save action. The next thing we need is method. That actually might be called type, but we'll find out. The next thing that we need is our data. So in this case, our data is, we could actually serialize this form data here if we want, or we can just grab just that input there. So I think what we'll do is we'll give this form an ID and we'll serialize it. So this will actually be the brand form. So down here, we'll do var form data equals jQuery, and this will be brand form dot serialize. And then right here, we'll just pass form data down. The next thing that we want to do is our success function. Oh, our tour. Our tour has a problem with using onClicks, guys. I don't have a problem using very basic stuff like this. The reason being is because the reason that most people say, hey, don't do this, is because you don't really want to mix your HTML and JavaScript together. However, I think with the exception of onClick, I don't have a problem firing a function from an onClick. We could set up a hook and everything like that, but I'm going to tell you this. Look, I'm probably not going to change that. For one, I use React all day long, and React, this is exactly how they do it there. And this is one of those things that like developers argue about all the time, whether or not you should do this. And I would say that if you're using an onClick, you're safe to do it. No one's ever going to be like, well, I wouldn't say no one because our tour just said it, but it's totally safe to use an onClick. The only thing I would say is with modern, make sure this C is not capitalized. That's actually deprecated. You want to make sure that C is lowercase, which is hard to remember because on JSX for React, you have to capitalize it. So, but at any rate, in the HTML, it's totally fine to do this. It's going to call this function. If we didn't do this, we could remove this little bit of JavaScript out of the HTML, and we would have to wait for page to load down here in these script tags and then attach that event listener to that. And so I don't know. I'm just gonna leave this. If you guys want to see how to do that, actually, I mean, anytime we have onClicks with a button, I'm probably just gonna use this. To me, it's so stupid to have the code down here using several lines when I just say, hey, just call this save brand thing here. So that's just, if that's a pet peeve of yours, do it that way. If not, look, I'm real laid back. I'm not, unless I can see a performance hit or something like that, then we can talk. But Other than that, it's style, it's programming style, and people have been arguing about it for a long time. But on-click is widely accepted. I wouldn't go as far as using some of the more obscure ones like hover and stuff like that. Hover's a bad one anyway, but on-click is fine. Okay. So then what we want to do is in our success function right here, we want to know, actually for now what we're going to do is we're going to console log that response because we still have to set this up. All right. So let's go back to our admin brands controller and we need to add that save action. So public function save action. Oops. And then here, this is going to grow, but in the beginning, we basically just need to take this input and add it to the brand. So we'll do brand, and this brand is going to equal a new brands object, and then we will say brand name is equal to this request get, and what we're looking for is name there. We're going to do some cross-site request forgery stuff too, but not yet. I'll tell you why in a minute. It has to do with AJAX, but until we get it working, we'll do the cross-site request forgery protection afterwards, but for now we're just going to do this. All right, so then what I want to do is we're going to do if brand save response. Let's set up our response of success false. Well, we don't have to put it here, but here we can just say response success true. And then I think what we'll do is we'll actually return that brand object. So we need I think I'm going to return that brand object. We'll see. That might. Let me look at the model and see if we have a toArray. I think I might have made a toArray function, but I may not have. Didn't. Maybe there's a different one. Data. We might use this. We don't want to pass the entire object back. Maybe we'll try this data method. Just hang with me, guys. I'm trying to check something. Okay. We'll see about that. So what we'll do here is we'll just say data. That should be good. And then, Artur, I wouldn't say I know better than you, man. I've seen that argument go on for so long. Frankly, it wears me out. I'm done with that argument. It's just, it gets old after a while. Like, I swear that developers sit around thinking of ways to mess with other developers and waste the other people's time. That must be what's going through people's head. I mean, I don't know that for certain, but so else what we want to do here is we actually want to return, we want to say response, and then we're going to say success is false, and then our errors are going to be let's see, our errors are going to be brand get error messages. All right. The last thing we want to do here is we want to do a this JSON response, and we're going to pass in that response array. All right. The other thing we want to do is make sure that this is actually posted. So we're going to wrap this entire thing in if this request is post. All right. I don't want anybody kind of visiting here. All right. So if its success is true, we'll get that back. So let's try now and see what happens. I'm going to refresh this. I don't suspect it's going to work right out of the gate. That didn't even make the AJAX request. So let's find out why. All right, so that made the AJAX request. It hit because it's got a status of 200. So let's take a look at it. So now we can see that success came back as false, and the errors came back with name, and it gave us our brand name is required error message. Now, we're going to have to do some JavaScript on these errors to find these. So we'll do that in a second, but essentially we need to loop through all these errors and print them via JavaScript because we normally use AJAX. Before we do that though, let's test and see if one actually works. What I'm going to do is go to Amazon, and I'm going to look up Catan, and I want to get the brand name here. Looks like it's Catan Studios. So I'm going to add that to my database. So Catan Studios, hit save. All right, and then that came back with the success of true, and then it gave us our brand back here. Not necessary at this point. All right, Artur, see you later. So not necessary that we pass back brand when we're creating a new one. However, later, the reason I did that is because I want to use the same action later when we go and add editing functionality to this, because we're going to use the same form to update, and I want to pass that updated information back so that we can update our table without refreshing the page. So that's why I'm returning that object, but it's not 100% necessary to do so. It's just what I did. The next thing that I want to do is so that worked. So now what we want to do is go ahead and handle those responses in the success function. So the first thing we'll do is it's going to be really simple. If response.success, then we're going to basically, I shouldn't have done this with an AJAX request. I hate that, because we're going to basically add it to this table. All right. Well, we'll keep on keeping on, because anyhow, the first thing we want to do is do an alert message, and we're going to say I guess we'll do success, a success message here. We could just leave it as info or whatever. But here what I want to do is we're going to add the brand name. Oh, you know what? Brand successfully saved. So we'll do that. And then we need to close, close the modal. So that was jQuery add brand form dot modal hide. Okay, so that'll close it, and that should empty the form out. So let's go back and try that again. This is going to be an error that already exists, so that's good that we tested that. I'm going to go and delete that. I'm going to add it again, but I didn't refresh the page. Let's fix our table real quick. Okay. One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. This is probably a Vagrant issue where my stuff's taking a minute to update. There we go. So we have our ID. All right, this is working fine. So let's go back here now. And refresh. All right, so now let's test it. So Catan Studios. Brand added, successfully saved, and it cleared the form out, so we're good to go on that. So thank you, Artur, thank you. So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and make sure that we take that row and we just add it into the table. So I'm going to give this table an ID, I guess, just so we can easily find it. And I'm just going to call it brands table. And then we'll go back here to this form, and we're not editing yet, so we're just gonna pretend this is just adding. So later we're gonna have to update this to check if it exists and then update it, or it'll actually have to, for now we're just going to prepend this. Okay, so we'll do jQuery, and then we're finding that brands table, and inside of that brands table we're looking for tbody, and we're going to prepend. I think prepend's the correct thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a tr with a data ID. Let me get rid of this double quote here. Data ID. And we're going to break out and do a response.brand.id. And then inside of here, we have td. And just for brevity of time, I'm not going to add the buttons right now, because at least I don't think I am. So this is going to, we're going to break out of that. We'll do response.brand.id. Break out again here. Response.brand.name. And then we had one more td. Just have to refresh the page if they want to use the buttons for now. We could, and we probably will add it, but I'm just getting kind of tired to where I don't want to do that right now. So let's try another one. Test. Alright, so it just adds it to the top. Also, it's not alphabetizing these or whatever. Hello, welcome to the live stream. So yeah, I think we'll just, for now, we'll add these in here. And then later we can work on putting these buttons. We don't even have these buttons working yet, so we need to make sure we get those working. And then we can make sure the JavaScript's adding this stuff in. All right, so I think that's all I want to do with that. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and make sure we can delete these things real quick, because that's another just kind of quick CRUD operation that we have to get done. So it should be really quick. Instead of running delete product, we're going to delete brand, which we need to create that still. And then we're going to pass in this brand ID. All right, so in order to do that, we need to go ahead and down here at the bottom, let's add that function real quick. This is going to be a super simple function. It's just delete our function, delete brand. It's going to take in the ID. All right, so then what we need to do is do our AJAX request. So let me scroll up real quick so you guys can see this. jQuery.ajax. That takes an object again. So URL, let's go ahead and send this to our project root. And then we're going to go ahead and send it to admin brands delete. All right, method is going to be post. The data is going to, I guess I'll just continue to, we don't have to put those in quotes there, but the data is going to be, we're just going to pass in ID like this, And then our success is an anonymous function. We'll pass that response back. Now, when it passes this response back, it will have success or false. And if it's success, we want to remove that row from the table. Okay, so we're just going to say if response.success. Then what we're going to do is response will also have something called, we'll call it model ID. I think that's what we did in the past, so we'll keep that consistent. So if this response is successful, we're going to alert message, and we'll say brand deleted, and we'll give that a type of success. The next thing that we want to do is go ahead and find that, so it's just gonna be super easy to find it. We're looking for a table row, and this table row is going to have a data ID attribute equal to response.model ID. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just remove that. Okay, so that should be it on the response. Probably what we need to do here is on else, we're just going to do an alert message, and we'll say something went wrong, and we'll give that a type of error, or let's do warning maybe. And I have a typo here. This is supposed to be a G, not a T. Alrighty then, so now I think the JavaScript is done here for this. So what we want to do is I want to go ahead and create that action, and so we're looking for a delete action in the admin brand. So this is going to be a super simple action here. We want to say let me check something in the database really quick. Just curious about something. Yeah. So we added user ID to these products. We need to do the same thing for brands, because that way we can make sure that the person who's deleting this has permission to delete the brand. So we better just go ahead and knock that out real quick before we forget. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to terminal and add a database migration. So again, I'm just going to run php gen migration, and then I'm going to jump down to this migrations table here, and we're just going to add a simple column real quick. This add column, this is going to be super quick here. So brands, it needs a user ID, and this user ID is going to be an integer. So the only other thing that we would want to do there is add an index for that. So we'll add an index to the brands table for user ID. Okay. Yep. So the next thing that I want to do is go ahead and run that migration so that I have it. So let's go ahead, jump back over. I'm going to SSH into, I'm using Vagrant, so it's Vagrant SSH. I'm just SSH into my server. We talked about this earlier. If you weren't here earlier, you can go back to the beginning of the video. I showed how to do these database migrations, and how to, if you can't SSH into your server, like if you use an XAMPP or something like that, I showed a workaround on how to do this. So go back and watch that, but it's the same exact method here. So I'm just gonna, I need to navigate to var www html. That's where my root directory is for my source code, and then in here I'm just gonna run php run migrations. Alright, so you can see that that added successfully. I'm gonna go ahead and exit out of there. clear that. Now, if I go back and we go to the brands table, we have user ID here. Wish I would have added that up to the top, but whatever. So we have user ID. So now we want to make sure that when we save that and when we delete that, we're taking that in consideration. So right here inside of the save action, all we need to do when we save this is we need to set brand ID, our user ID. So we say brand user ID, and that is going to be equal to this, and I believe we called it current user. Yep. So this current user ID. All right. So that will actually save our user ID. So let's see. Yep. That saves the user ID, so we can test that. Let's go back now and go back to brands, look at the data, and let's test adding one real quick. And go back. Yep. So I'm gonna go ahead and edit these two rows. I don't know why I'm editing this one. This one's not important. And also this one. I'm just going to go ahead and put those in. All right, the next thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that this table is only displaying brands that are for the user ID. So that's going to be super easy as well. In order to do that, let's just go back up to our index action. And right here in this find, we were just finding all of them and ordering by name. But now we need to add a conditions and a bind here. So it's going to be really easy, but we just need to add it. So conditions, and we just want to say user ID, and we're going to use a bound parameter here. So then we need to use bind and pass in an array for that. And what we're going to pass in is this current user ID. And the reason we have access to this current user is because up here on our on construct, we set up our layout, but we also set current user, and this gets the current logged in user. So every action inside of this admin brands controller, because we did this in this on construct, is going to have access to current user, that object. All right. So now that we have that, and we know that our user ID, so let's test this real quick, because I like testing little things at a time to make sure we're good. So I'm going to change this one to 2. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to change that back. I just wanted to make sure that our query was set up correctly. All right, so that's back. The next thing that we want to do is finish our delete action now. So inside of our delete action, we want to make sure that this request is post. All right, and we're going to have to find brand now. So let's get our ID first. So our ID is going to be equal to this request get ID. All right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cast that to an integer right here as well, just for a little added security. And it is sanitized, but since it is posted data, let's go ahead and cast that to an integer. The next thing I want to do is we want to find brand. So brand is going to be equal to brands find first. All right, and then here we'll just say conditions, and this will be we want to make sure the user ID is equal to the user, and we want to make sure that the ID is equal to this ID that we posted in. Okay, so we're going to bind those two values, and first up was the user ID, so we'll say this current user ID. Alright, the next one is we're just simply going to pass in our ID that we've already grabbed right here on line 43. Alright, so now what we want to do is let's set up our response. So our response is going to be equal to success false by default, and we are going to skip down a few lines here, and we're going to do a JSON response. So this JSON response, and we're going to pass in that response array. Alright, the next thing that I want to do is we want to check if this came back with the brand. If it came back, we can assume that the brand is owned by the current logged in user because we found that value here. So we're going to go ahead and delete it. So we're just going to do a check there. We'll say if brand. So if that's true, then we're just going to do brand delete. Alright, and then after that, we'll just update that response success. We're going to set that equal to true, and then we'll say response model ID is equal to ID. Okay? So that'll just send that back. We don't really have to do that, but we will. Alright, so now that should actually take care of deleting these when we fire this off. So let's try this one first. Let me refresh this, although it probably wasn't necessary. Alright, so that says that the brand was deleted. Let's look. Okay, model ID, I have an error here. That's what that was supposed to be. But if I refresh, it did delete it. Now let's try it again and see if it actually removes the row from the table. So if I click that, that worked. It didn't remove our row though, so there's an issue there. So let's look at that. We did get success true back. So let's look at our function. This part worked. Let me try, make sure my jQuery is correct there. jQuery tr data ID is equal to 4. Remove. So it works. It works from the I'm going to set these two back to not deleted so we can play with those some more. Alright, so they're back. Obviously I have a typo here somewhere. Response.model. You know what, it could be one of those issues where it's taken a minute for my files to update. And also let me clear my cache. Alright. That's model dash ID. So that's the problem. This is supposed to be an underscore. Let's try it now. There we go. So I just had a typo. I used a hyphen instead of an underscore. So now those are deleting. We probably want to go ahead and do a confirmation instead of just deleting it. So let's go ahead and do that. And that's going to be super easy. We'll just use a JavaScript alert there, or confirmation there. So here, what we're going to do is we're going to say if confirm, are you sure you want to delete this brand? And then we're going to put everything, all of this, inside of that. Okay. So are you sure you want to delete this? No. Yes. Okay. Brand deleted. All right then. Now that I've deleted that, I do want to go ahead and add that back. I don't really care about these two. I'm gonna delete these permanently. But I do want Catan Studios as part of one of my products. So there we go. Let's see what other games I had. I had Splendor and Agricola. So let's look at those brand names. Agricola. Mayfair Games. All right, and then the last one was Splendor. That's Asmodee. All right. All right, so now I have three brands: Asmodee, Catan Studios, Mayfair Games. So now that we've done our adding and deletion, I think we might have enough time to do the editing and just call it done with the CRUD operations here. We need to add a select inside of our products so that we can choose these brands for our products, so that when we're here in the products, maybe we go here to Agricola, we need a new field for brand to where you can select the brand for this. Same thing with when we add a new product here, we want to go ahead and add that to this form as well. I'm going to go back to brands. Well, I guess let's go ahead and try to finish this edit thing here. And this is going to be a little bit unique because the edit let's see. Guess we can just start with the function edit brand, and we'll pass in the ID to that. And then let's think about this for a moment. If we want to use that same form, we probably want to add a hidden input for the ID, and then we want to update. We're going to make an AJAX call to get this brand by ID, and then we're going to update that form. So that's how we'll do it. Let's see. this right here is just, let's change this to a button. And then we'll get rid of the href. And instead we'll do an on click. And here we want to call edit brand. And we want to pass in the brand ID. Okay. So then we'll have that brand. So let's just console log that, make sure that's working. I don't see a reason why that shouldn't work, but I like to test things as I go. So 7, 3, 6. Okay, so that's working. So now we need to fire off an AJAX call to actually get that brand information and update the form. So the way we're going to do that is we'll do an AJAX and we're send that to admin brands get brand by ID, maybe. Let me scroll up a little bit so you can see. Method. Dang it. Fingers are getting too happy. Post that. Data will be ID. And then what we'll do is on success, so if the response is successful, we're going to find that ID and update it and update the input. So what we'll need to do, let's first find the input of name and update that. So because it's going to be the exact same for the other. So this is name dot val, and then this will be response dot brand dot name, and then we'll do the same thing for brand ID. All right. The next thing we want to do is open that modal. So we'll do brand form, or yeah, add brand form. So we're just finding the modal, and then we'll do show, I believe was the name of that action. Yeah, show. All right, so else what we want to do is we probably want to empty these both. So I want to make sure that nothing crazy can happen here, which the front end's not really the way to do that anyway. We're going to do some more checks on the back end, but we're just going to empty val out, and we're going to empty out brand ID. Except for we're going to set that to new, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so that will take us to edit. Let me close out this migration. We don't need all this stuff open. All right. So we need to add a hidden input. I think I have one of those in the form helpers. I may not though. No big deal. We'll just add it. Old school. I don't need this. I don't need this open. One thing I do still need open that closed is the form. All right. So we need to add an input here for the hidden input. So we'll do that right here at the top of this. So we're going to do input of type equal to hidden. We're going to give this thing an ID to brand ID. We'll also give it a name, brand ID, and then value. This is actually, we're going to leave this set to new. Okay. All right. So that will update that. Let's try that now. Our controller action isn't going to handle it yet, but so let's see. Get brand. Okay, so yeah, so we need to add that action, get brand by ID. So it tried to fire it off. Let's go back to admin's controller, and this is going to be a super easy public function get brand by ID, and that needs the word action afterwards. Scroll up a little bit. For the most part, this is going to be the same, so I'm going to copy all of this stuff from our last action, and then we'll just change what we need to. We're making sure that it is post. The ID, we're still finding the brand. Okay. The only difference is if brand is, we don't want to pass back the model ID. We want to pass back brand, and then we will set that equal to brand data. All right. So let's try that again. There we go. Cancel that. It looks like the AJAX call is working correctly. You can see that it passes us back. We need to make sure that our hidden input's being updated. So it is. That input is 7. Try this one. It should be 6. Yep. I broke it. What did I do? Oops. Well, I forgot to delete this line here that's deleting them all. So that's a problem. Let's go back to my database. You guys probably saw me do that and you're like, this guy is stupid. So let's see. Go back to the brands table. So I'm just going to select all of these. We'll edit them. And we're going to set deleted to 0. All right. So now let's check that again. Let's see. 7, 6, 3. The other thing we need to do is when we close that, we need to make sure we're changing. When that closes, we need to set. Where is it at here? Oh, it's right here. So right here in this anonymous function, we need to set, every time that closes, we need to set brand ID to new. I'll show you why. It's so that if I click this and then I close this and then I hit add new, I need to make sure that that hidden input gets reset to new, and it does. So that's good to go. The last thing that we need to do now is actually update these. And it's not going to be hard because we already have that functionality done. We just need to update that action. So the admin brand here, let's go to the save action here. And we need to just add a little bit of a check here. So we're going to say brand ID. So if brand ID, that's going to be equal to this request get brand ID. And then what we're going to do is now, instead of just saying brand is equal to new brands, we're going to say, we're going to do a ternary operator here, and we're going to say if brand ID is equal to new, then brand is going to equal new brands, else it's going to equal to brands. And let's just do a find by user ID and ID function here, so we can just leave that on one line. So we'll just need to pass in this current user ID, and then pass in well, we'll just pass in brand ID here. Yep. Okay. So let's create this method now and copy that. So if we go to our brands model, we're going to create a new public static function. So this takes in a user ID and it takes in the brand ID. So just we need to return self find first conditions. And this will equal we'll say user ID is equal to the first bound parameter and ID is equal to the second bound parameter. And then we just need to pass in user ID and ID. All right, so that should wrap up that function. Now we did pretty much do that same thing in our delete action right here. So instead of calling this right here, what we could do is we can do find by user ID and ID, and then pass in this current user ID and then ID. So that cleans up the delete action a little bit. We can also do it here. And clean up the find by ID action. Okay, so now what this should do, if we look at the save action, now it's going to look at that brand ID, and if the brand ID is new, it's just going to create a new object. Else, it's going to find it, and then it's going to set this down here. At this point though, we want to make sure that brand exists probably. Because they could be trying to do something a little goofy. So what we're gonna do is I guess we'll just wrap all this if brand and we'll put all of this in there. Else yeah, this is going to be a little buggy right here, but that's okay. That'd be fine. So let's try to update these now. I'm going to add to the end of this, I'm going to add an extra E. Save it, and it worked. The problem is our JavaScript just adds it to the beginning of the table, so we'll need to take care of that. But if I refresh, you can see that that worked. So let's go ahead now and fix that JavaScript so it doesn't just add it to the new thing. And that should be fairly straightforward. So right here in the save brand function, on the success, we need to see if it exists. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do here is let's do var, we'll just say row is equal to jQuery, and what we want to do is find brands table tbody tr actually, you know what? We can simplify that a lot. We're just going to say tr data id is equal. There we go. And then this returns the brand. So we'll just do response.brand.id. So we're looking for that. If it exists, then we're going to replace it. So I don't know if it's going to be undefined if jQuery doesn't find it. So let's see what that happens there. So console log row, and what I want to do to test it is add a new one here. The length with 0 on that. The length is 1 on that. Okay. So we can check on length, I guess. So what we'll do is we'll say if row.length is equal to 0, then we're going to do all this. We're going to just prepend that there. Else, we want to let's see if I can do one more thing here. Var new row is equal to else jQuery. Actually, I'm going to try this row.replace new row. Let's see what happens. I add a bunch of F's on the end of this. That doesn't work. So let's see. We can't do row.replace. So I think what we have to do is find that row and update it. So let's see, tr this is one reason that React is so much better to do this stuff with. I hate jQuery. I don't use it ever either. So we'll do that, and then let me find, let's see, jQuery find int child. Okay, so we'll find that, and then inside of that we're looking for td nth child. We're looking for the second. Yep. And then we'll do dot text, and we're going to set that equal to response dot body dot name. Let's see if that works. I'm going to get rid of all those F's at the end there. Save. Dang it. Property name doesn't exist. Oops, I said body. That should be brand. You guys probably saw that. Alright, let's try it again. Let's add a bunch of F's back. Save. Alright, it updated it. Now if we save it. Alright, so now we can edit these things. And it should actually still give us an error if we try to replace one. And dang it. Oh, I never handled the let's see. So I never handled the error messages. But I think we're getting to a place where I probably need to wrap it up for the night. I don't think I could start a new, I don't know if you guys ever do that. I just hit Control S on the browser. So hi Eric, nice to have you here, man. Yeah, you guys all network and communicate with one another and all of that. That's awesome. But I think we're to a place now that if I start anything else, I only got 15 minutes. We'll end up going over. So I think what I want to do is open it up if you guys have any questions or you want to go over anything that I did, or you just have any questions in general, I'll try to answer those. And then if you guys are good to go, we'll probably just call it a night. I think we got plenty done. Kind of a boring session because we just basically did a bunch more CRUD operations with brands. But hey, that's the nature of building a project, man. You're gonna have times when you're working on stuff that's not as cool or sexy as the stuff you want to be working on, and that's just the way it is. So let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll keep my eye on the comment section. If not, if you guys aren't subscribed, please like, comment, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell notification, and hopefully YouTube will let you know when I do these live streams, which right now are going to be on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. My goal for the next video, since we didn't get quite as far along tonight as I had hoped, I think the next video series, what we'll try to do is hurry up and add the brand to the products, and then we'll jump into displaying all the products on the home page and start on being able to add these things to the shopping cart. So we'll be building out a shopping cart and that sort of thing. Let's see. Hello, Denise. Yeah, I updated a little bit at the beginning on that, Denise, with my health and stuff, but I'm doing well. Thank you guys so much for all your love and support and prayers through this time. As long as the good Lord willing, I will be here on Tuesdays. So hopefully, you know, I will plan to do that unless there's other plans that come up. Robin says, it's good to manipulate jQuery and PHP together. I'm doing the same thing nowadays for my project. Yeah, ultimately it's not my favorite thing to do, but I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of trying to use like Vue.js or Angular or React, which I usually use React for my front ends right now. It makes things a lot nicer for this sort of thing. Ultimately, what I should have done is just kind of skipped the jQuery AJAX calls and just did it all with PHP. And it would have been nicer and it would have went faster. But I think I just had a lot of people asking how to do it. So I just wanted to give an example of how to kind of manipulate the DOM with jQuery and things like that. jQuery has to be loaded with Bootstrap anyway, so we already have it. So we're not having to do any sort of like node setup. I didn't want to get into any of that because that's just out of the scope of this tutorial. I will be doing a tutorial series on React soon. I'm also going to do a series on Vue.js, primarily because I haven't used Vue.js very much and I'd actually like to learn it. So it'd be fun for me to do just a small project in Vue. It's similar enough, I think. It's kind of a crossbreed between React and Angular, in my opinion, but it should be fairly easy to learn. Looks like a nice framework, so I might do that as well. Use glasses to protect your eyes from blue light. Yeah, I've seen that a lot. People do that. I actually worked with a guy who did that, and he swore he got less headaches and stuff after switching to those glasses. But that's a good, if you guys can afford them, and you can stand having something on your face. For me, I wear headphones all day, and I don't like earbuds because they hurt my ears. So I put on like the big old headphones that go around your ears, and so having glasses on with those headphones like rubs the top of my ears. So I don't wear them. I probably should. I probably just at least turn down the brightness of my screen. That could help too. Robin says that Vue.js is nicer than React. Yeah, that's an opinion you can have. I can see why people would think that. However, when you start getting to really big projects, I think React starts to shine a lot more than Vue. I think Vue kind of is really nice for doing partial implementation, which isn't great in React, and it's also nice just for small projects. Um, I think that React, and I'm probably biased because I use it all day, and I know it really well. Um, React for me is very nice to work with. Um, and again, it's probably because it's the main framework that I use. So it could just be my own bias. So, and again, that's the other reason I want to do a Vue.js is just because I want to learn more about it. I've read through their documentation. I get the basic concept, but I haven't built a project with Vue. So I don't have a great understanding of how they do, um, how it's going to be to like manage huge amounts of state or anything like that in a big project. But we'll see. But all right, guys. Well, it's been fun tonight. Sorry the content was a little dry with us kind of just doing a little something that wasn't that fun, but it needed to be done. We had to have it done in the project to add brands. So it's important for us to do. Thank you guys so much for hanging with me through the weeks that I took off to take care of some personal and health issues. Hopefully that will slow down now and we won't miss any more weeks. But thank you guys so much. I love you guys. I really, and I don't just say that lightly. Love gets tossed around, especially here in the United States where people are like, oh, I love tacos and I love, this and I love that. And it just becomes kind of a cheap word. But when I say I love you guys, I mean that I don't know many of you personally, so it's hard to love you in that sense. But I love what you guys are doing in your life. I love that you guys are making an effort to better your lives, to gain knowledge, and my encouragement is to use it for good. Um, Pass the knowledge on to someone else. This has been a blessing in my life. The reason that I teach these tutorials is not because I make a ton of money on YouTube. In fact, I make very little money through ad revenue on YouTube. It's not worth the time that I put into this. The reason that I do this is because this has helped my family, and I know if it has helped my family, I think it can help yours. I think that there's jobs out there that people can get and can do something better with their lives than what they're currently doing. Not that a job is the number one thing, but a job can affect your happiness and the amount of money that you're able to provide to your family and your communities. So when I say that I love you guys, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I love you guys. I love the comments and the support you guys have given me. And so thank you guys very much for that. I love how diverse you guys are. And what I mean by that is I live in the middle of the United States in a rural area, and most of the people that I communicate with on a daily basis are a lot like me. And so it's nice to talk with people from all around the world to get to know you guys a little bit. We may differ on, silly things, not silly things, but we may differ on what we believe about religion or politics or anything else. But what we can all agree on is we can agree that programming is fun and that we can better our lives and the people's lives around us by doing it. And I think regardless of our backgrounds, religious beliefs, or political beliefs, I think that we all want to make the world a better place. And so because of that, I love you guys, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week. And and I really hope that we can continue this project and you guys learned something. That's it. I mean, I don't really care about making an e-commerce site. I don't care if we were making a social networking site, whatever we chose to do. This is just an excuse to get together and to talk code and talk what it's like to do this for a living, and just to give my knowledge to you guys in any small way that I can. So with that, guys, have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, and I know that's like 3 or 4 in the morning for most of you. I commend you guys for your hard work and for getting up early and doing that. I can't get up that early, so I'm gonna keep doing it late at night. So anyhow, I'm gonna go work on my car. You guys have a wonderful day. Peace out.